A poor student refused to cheat on a test, which was actually a secret scholarship exam. The words echoed in Elijah Morgan's mind as he stared at the crumpled rejection letter from the financial aid office. Third denial this semester. The thin paper trembled in his calloused hands, the university's embossed letterhead gleaming mockingly under the harsh fluorescent lights of his apartment, if one could call it that. A converted storage room with a mattress on the floor, a wobbly desk rescued from someone's curb, and a single window that refused to fully close against Chicago's bitter winter wind. Outside, snow fell in thick, relentless curtains, much like the despair settling over Elijah's shoulders. 20 years old, working 3 part-time jobs, and still barely affording community college classes. His dream of transferring to Westlake University, with its pristine buildings and world-renowned engineering program, seemed increasingly like a cruel joke the universe played on kids from the South Side. He folded the letter with deliberate precision, creasing it sharply before tucking it into the shoebox under his bed. A growing collection of similar rejections, a reminder of all the doors that remained firmly closed. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen at the library where he shelved books on weekends. "Can you cover tomorrow morning? Sally's sick again." Elijah closed his eyes, calculating the hours of sleep he'd lose between his night shift at the gas station and his afternoon classes. His thermodynamics midterm loomed just 2 days away. The exam he absolutely could not fail if he wanted any shot at maintaining his current GPA. The one fragile thing of value he possessed. "Sure," he typed back. No hesitation. Mrs. Chen had given him the job when no one else would, had slipped him day-old pastries from the library cafe more times than he could count. His stomach growled in response, reminding him he'd skipped dinner again. The refrigerator held only a half-empty carton of milk and some questionable leftover rice from 3 days ago. He'd get paid on Friday. Just 2 more days. Elijah pulled his textbook closer, ignoring the hunger pangs. Under the pool of light from his second-hand desk lamp, he lost himself in the elegant laws of thermodynamics. A world where energy was neither created nor destroyed, where systems naturally moved toward equilibrium. Unlike real life, where energy drained away and nothing ever seemed to balance. Sleep came in fitful bursts that night. Dreams of falling and failure intermingled with equations and the constant worry about next month's rent. Morning arrived too quickly, gray light seeping through the gap in his window as he pulled on his only clean sweater, the wool thin at the elbows. The library was quiet at 7 a.m., just the way he liked it. He methodically sorted return carts, finding small comfort in creating order where there was chaos. Books returned to their rightful places, knowledge properly categorized. In these peaceful morning hours, surrounded by thousands of books containing worlds he could only visit, but never fully inhabit, Elijah found moments of peace. "You look terrible, Mrs. Chen said bluntly, appearing beside him with a steaming cup of coffee and a bagel. Her silver-streaked hair was twisted into its usual tight bun, her small frame dwarfed by an oversized cardigan. "Thanks." Elijah accepted the offering with genuine gratitude. "Rough night." She studied him with eyes that missed nothing. "The engineering midterm is tomorrow, yes? The one Professor Wagner gives?" He nodded, mouthful of bagel, the first real food he'd eaten in 18 hours. "That man," she shook her head. 30 years teaching, and half the engineering students still fear him like the devil himself. With good reason. Elijah had heard the legends. Wagner's tests were brutal, designed to break students. Less than a 50% pass rate every semester without fail. And Elijah couldn't afford to fail. Not when each credit hour cost him 63 hours of minimum wage work. Mrs. Chen patted his arm. "You study harder than anyone I know. You'll be fine." He smiled, not believing her, but appreciating the kindness nonetheless. The day passed in a blur of shelving, studying during breaks, and gulping down another cup of Mrs. Chen's coffee before rushing to his afternoon class. By evening, exhaustion had settled deep in his bones as he took his position behind the counter at Hal's Gas and Go, where he would remain until midnight. His phone buzzed shortly after 9 p.m. A text from Damien, one of the few people from high school he still occasionally spoke with. "Yo, got something that might interest you. Wagner's test? I know someone who has it. The actual questions. You in?" Elijah stared at the message, the fluorescent light suddenly too bright, too harsh. His heart beat a strange rhythm against his ribs. "What do you mean?" he typed back. "My roommate's cousin had Wagner last semester. Says the tests are recycled. Same questions, just different numbers. $50. Almost a full day's wages. But the guarantee of passing? Another text. Don't be stupid, man. Everyone does it. That's how the rich kids stay on top." They've got connections, we gotta make our own. Elijah's thumbs hovered over the screen. Damien wasn't wrong. He'd seen the fraternity guys in his classes, carelessly confident, legacies whose parents had buildings named after them. They passed exams through networks of old tests and study guides passed down like family heirlooms. But something in him recoiled at crossing this particular line. He'd worked double shifts, gone hungry, walked miles in snow when he couldn't afford bus fare, all to be here, to learn, to earn his way. Can't do it, man. Sorry. The reply came quickly. Your funeral. Offer stands if you change your mind. The night shift crawled by, each minute stretching as Elijah tried to study between customers. The textbook spread open beside the register. Equations blurred before his tired eyes. What if he failed? The scholarship he'd applied for required a minimum 3.75 GPA. One bad grade would shatter that threshold, would erase months of sacrifice. $50. Just to peek at the questions, just to know what to expect. The thought followed him home, through the silent streets dusted with fresh snow, into his cold apartment where the heater struggled to push the temperature above 60. It lingered as he collapsed onto his mattress, too tired to even remove his shoes. In his dreams, he held the test paper, the answers magically appearing beneath his pen without effort. He woke feeling more exhausted than when he'd fallen asleep. Morning. Test day. Elijah's phone lit up with another message from Damien. Last chance. Meet me outside Wagner's building at 9:30. His hands shook as he made instant coffee, spilling half the granules on the counter. The clock on the microwave blinked 8:15. He had time to meet Damien, to take the shortcut that everyone else seemed entitled to. Instead, he spent the hour reviewing his notes one final time, then walked to campus, each step heavy with doubt. The classroom was buzzing with nervous energy when he arrived. 60 students, many looking as sleep-deprived as he felt. Professor Wagner stood at the front, tall and imposing with steel-gray hair and a posture that suggested military background. His reputation for academic rigor was matched only by his reputation for having absolutely no mercy. Elijah slid into a seat near the back, nodding to a few familiar faces. No sign of Damien. He pulled out 2 sharpened pencils and his calculator, arranging them with unnecessary precision. Before we begin, Wagner's voice cut through the murmurs. I have an announcement. The room quieted instantly. This examination is more than it appears. Wagner's eyes swept the room, seeming to linger momentarily on each student. Some of you may already know that. Some of you may have sought outside assistance in preparation. Elijah's heart stuttered. Had Damien been caught? Was Wagner about to cancel the exam? Those of you who chose that path have already failed, in more ways than one. Wagner's expression remained unreadable. For the rest of you, I wish you clarity of thought and steadiness of purpose. You may begin when you receive your paper. Teaching assistants moved through the rows, distributing the exams face down. Elijah's palms were slick with sweat by the time a packet landed on his desk. He couldn't bring himself to turn it over until the official start time was announced. You have 90 minutes, Wagner said, setting an old-fashioned analog clock on his desk with deliberate care. Begin. Elijah flipped the paper. The first question made his blood run cold. It wasn't anything like what they'd studied. Neither was the second, or the third. This wasn't just difficult. It was as if Wagner was testing completely different material. Around him, he heard soft gasps, confused murmurs. Others were just as surprised. A girl 2 seats ahead put her head in her hands. Elijah forced himself to breathe, to focus. He read the first question again, more carefully. Then he recognized it. Not from class, but from a supplementary reading Wagner had casually mentioned weeks ago. A text few would have bothered to look up, but Elijah had. During a late shift at the library, he'd found that obscure engineering journal and photocopied the relevant pages, reading them on bus rides between jobs. He began to write slowly at first, then with growing confidence. Not all the questions were answerable from their coursework, but they all tested fundamental principles. Principles Elijah understood because he'd had to fight for every scrap of knowledge. When Wagner called time, Elijah had answered every question to the best of his ability. Not perfectly, perhaps, but honestly, with what he knew, what he had earned through countless sleepless nights and stolen study moments. He handed in his exam with the others, catching a glimpse of Damien's face, ashen and shocked near the door. Whatever test answers he'd purchased clearly hadn't matched this exam. Mr. Morgan, Wagner's voice stopped him as students filed out. A moment, please. Elijah's exhaustion gave way to fresh anxiety. Had he done something wrong? Was there a problem with his exam? When the room emptied, Wagner gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit, please." Elijah perched on the edge of the seat, hands clasped tightly in his lap. "I received an interesting email last night," Wagner said, removing his reading glasses, "from a student informing me that copies of what he believed to be my exam were circulating for purchase." The room suddenly felt airless. "Sir, Wagner held up a hand. "I'm not accusing you, Mr. Morgan. In fact, I happen to know you were offered such materials and declined." Confusion must have shown on Elijah's face, because Wagner almost smiled, an expression so rare students had speculated it might crack his face. "The exam you just took wasn't my standard midterm, Mr. Morgan. It was specially designed for today after I received that email. A test not just of knowledge but of character." He leaned forward. "Tell me, why didn't you accept the offered advantage? Financial concerns aren't unknown to me. Your situation would make such a temptation particularly acute." Elijah's mouth was dry. It wouldn't have been mine, sir." "Explain." "The grade, the knowledge, it wouldn't have belonged to me. I'd rather fail honestly than succeed through deception." He swallowed hard. "My GPA is the only thing of value I have. If I cheat to protect it, then it's worthless anyway." Wagner studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he opened a drawer and removed an envelope emblazoned with the Westlake University crest, the prestigious university Elijah dreamed of transferring to. "Every year I administer 2 tests, Mr. Morgan. One examines engineering aptitude. The other examines something far more important." He slid the envelope across the desk. "This belongs to you." With trembling fingers, Elijah opened it. Inside was an official letter announcing his selection for the Wagner Foundation Scholarship for Engineering Excellence, a full-ride transfer scholarship to Westlake University, including housing and a living stipend. "I don't understand," he whispered, the words blurring before his eyes. "For 15 years, I've been identifying candidates who demonstrate both academic potential and unimpeachable character," Wagner explained. "The leaked exam is a deliberate filter. Those who seek it automatically disqualify themselves from consideration. But the midterm will be graded fairly, though it was indeed designed to test deeper understanding rather than memorization. Based on your work today, I don't believe you'll be disappointed with your result." Wagner's face softened slightly. "Excellence in engineering isn't just about solving equations, Mr. Morgan. It's about integrity when designing bridges that people trust with their lives. It's about honesty when safety margins are calculated." Elijah stared at the letter, unable to process what it meant. No more converted storage room. No more choosing between textbooks and meals. A real chance. "Why me?" he finally managed. "Because you understood something that many never learn. Integrity isn't a luxury afforded to those with privilege. It's most valuable precisely when it costs the most." Wagner stood, signaling the end of their conversation. "The foundation will contact you with details. I expect you'll continue to make me proud at Westlake." Elijah walked out into the afternoon sunshine, the weight of the letter in his backpack both lighter than air and heavier than all his responsibilities combined. The campus looked different somehow, the buildings no longer intimidating fortresses but potential homes. His phone buzzed. "Mrs. Chen, how did the test go?" He smiled, wondering if she had known something all along. Her kindness had sustained him through so many dark days. "Better than I could have imagined," he replied. "Can I stop by the library? I have something to tell you." As he crossed the quad, snow began to fall again. Not the bitter, biting flakes of desperation, but gentle, peaceful crystals that melted on his upturned face. For the first time in years, Elijah felt something unfamiliar unfurling in his chest. Not just hope, but vindication. The universe wasn't conspiring against him after all. Sometimes, rarely but truly, things balanced out exactly as they should. In a world that often rewarded the wrong things, privilege, connections, shortcuts, his stubborn integrity had finally been seen, valued, rewarded. He thought of his father's words, spoken long ago before illness took him. "Your character is built in the dark, son, in the choices you make when you think no one is watching." Someone had been watching after all. Elijah took a deep breath of cold, clean air, feeling possibility expand within him like a sunrise. The path ahead wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about becoming the person he had already proven himself to be, even when it would have been easier to be someone else. The library came into view, its windows glowing with warm light against the early winter dusk. Mrs. Chen would be waiting with her knowing smile and quiet wisdom. Perhaps there would be coffee, and for once, he wouldn't have to count the hours until his next shift, or worry about the dwindling dollars in his account. Tonight, he would simply breathe. Tomorrow, he would begin again. Not as a poor student desperate to stay afloat, but as a scholar chosen for his merit, his potential, and most importantly, for the strength of his convictions when they had cost him the most. And that made all the difference.